I'm Nick Pettit.
I'm Jason Seifer.
And you're watching the Treehouse Show, your weekly dose of internets where we talk about all things web design, web development, and more.
In this episode, we'll be talking about lazy loading images, underlining text, scrolling, and more.
Let's check it out. First up is a CSS and JavaScript library called lazysizes. So if you've ever tried to use source set and load in some responsive, friendly images, you've probably encountered a little bit of difficulty. And lazysizes sort of makes that easier, but it also is a lazy loader. So images that are not currently visible on the screen can be loaded in later on as they're needed. So if we scroll down here, you can see that it's pretty easy to install. You just get the lazysizes minified JavaScript file and include it onto your web page. And then inside of images or iframes, you can use the data source and data source set attributes and load in things. So why is this so great? Well, there's a couple of demos, but I just want to highlight one in particular. When I clicked that link there, you might have saw that this image was a little bit pixelated and blurry, but it came up pretty quickly, and then it got clear. Well, this is called LQIP. It's a technique called low quality image placeholder, and basically it will load in a low quality version of an image, and then when the higher quality version comes in, it will be replaced. So this, as it says, might increase measured time until the onload event. It dramatically increases perceived performance, which a lot of times can be more important than actual performance, showing maybe a loading bar or something like that to let the user know that stuff is going on. And when they see images pop in really quickly onto the page, you can know that, oh, the website's loading, things are happening pretty fast. And then if those images pop into high quality maybe a second later, it's not really all that noticeable. In fact, it looks like the web page loaded much faster.
And it draws attention to the image.
It does. Anyway, this is a wonderful technique and a wonderful collection of JavaScript and CSS to make that happen.
Perfect. And while you're using that, go ahead and use ScrollIt.js, which is the next little project that we're talking about. Now, if you look at this website right here, I can scroll down, and I am currently using my trackpad to scroll through. Nothing much to see here. It's pretty simple. Everything scrolls as expected. However, if I use the arrow keys to scroll down here, you'll notice that it jumps me to the different sections of this web page, and it does that very smoothly. Now, this is a very, very small plugin. It is 1 kilobyte minified, and it's also very configurable. So just include jQuery and ScrollIt.js. Give your divs or your different elements the scroll index attribute, and then put some scroll navigation up top, and then you are good to go. All you have to do is call ScrollIt. Now, of course, it has some different options. You can give different up and down keys, as well as specify the easing, scroll time, the active class, and what happens on the page change. Not too much to say about it, but it is a simple plugin that is also extremely useful, so make sure to check that out as well.
Very nice stuff. Well, next up we have this really cool CSS technique that allows you to underline links, but actually have breaks in between where words cross over the line, or where letters cross over the line. So, for example, in Safari or in the iOS 8 Messages app, you'll notice that when things like this G here or this P cross over the bottom line there, it actually breaks up the line, whereas normally on a web page, it looks something like this. The line just crosses straight through. Well, if you want to get links looking this way on your website, this is for you. So here's kind of a 3D, 2D example of how this all gets sandwiched together. So right now, I'm looking at a 3D view. If I click this, you can see that it all sort of comes together. So basically what they're doing here is they're creating this little line here as a background image, and then on top of that, they are layering in some text that has a text shadow on top of it, and it's the same color as the web page background. So when you put that all together, it looks like that it's actually cutting through that line. So if you scroll down here, they have a ton of stylus, which is a CSS preprocessor, and you can use this stylus code to create the same effect on your website. So definitely be sure to check this one out.
Very nice. Next up, we have a collection of tips on how to scroll. Now, this sounds like it might be self-explanatory, but this is focused more on the art of storytelling using different scroll effects. Now,
I didn't even know you could scroll web pages until just now. This really changed my life.
Wow, no wonder some of those web page scrollings were going so slow.
Yeah.
Just sitting there staring at the one web page. Why isn't this working?
Yeah.
Because you have to scroll, Nick.
Huh.
Anyway. This is a great collection of tips from Mike Bostock. I hope I am pronouncing that right. Tip number 1 is prefer scrolling to clicking. Now, the reason that you should scroll instead of click is because you want a visual indication of additional content. So as we're looking at this web page, you can kind of see how on the bottom of the screen there can be more words below there. But if you were just clicking through, you may not know when to stop clicking. Also, allow rapid incremental reversible scrolling. Don't do something that frustrates readers, sometimes called scrolljacking, where you actually take control of scrolling and make the browser's viewport do something different. Anyway, he has a ton of different tips here, like providing instantaneous and consistent feedback. What's really great about some of these tips is that he shows you with examples. For example, from the New York Times with this shark and minnow video. As we're scrolling through here, there is a video on the screen, but the text as we scroll goes to the top of the screen, giving us visual indications of what is happening. Anyway, this is a great collection of user experience tips that I really recommend you check out.
Very nice stuff. Well, next up is Furtive. This is a forward-thinking CSS micro framework. I know that because it says it right here, but it's actually very small at 2.5 kilobytes. So how is this CSS framework so small? Well, first, they do cut out a lot of features that you might expect from a more robust framework like Bootstrap or Foundation, such as tabs and all that kind of nice stuff. But there is a responsive grid system, there's buttons, there's form stylings, media objects, tables, colors, and all sorts of cool stuff in here. And one of the interesting ways that they're cutting out a ton of code that you would normally need for a grid system is they are doing some forward thinking by using Flexbox. So one important thing to point out about Furtive is that it's not going to work in every browser that people are using right now. So it's going to leave out a couple of older browsers. But if you're okay with that, you've looked at your analytics and you know that the people using your website will definitely be happy about a faster loading site rather than one that supports a huge range of browsers, this might be for you. And even if that's not the case, it's still fun to experiment with just to get familiar with Flexbox and kind of get a preview of what CSS frameworks might look like in the future, because I'm pretty sure Foundation is actually moving in this direction as well. I think they're going to start using Flexbox.
So I'm looking at caniuse.com, and it looks like Flexbox is not supported on IE versions earlier than 10.
So,
which is relatively recent.
Pretty cutting edge. So definitely use caution when using this particular CSS framework. It might break for a lot of people, but
it's only 2 kilobytes.
It is pretty fascinating to see a grid system and all that other stuff done in such a small package. So
the future is today, and it's small.
It is. Well, I think that's all we have time for this week. I am at NickRP on Twitter.
And I'm at Jason Seifer. For more information on anything we talked about, check out the links in the show notes right below this video. We want to thank everybody for watching, and we will talk to you next week.